UFO Highway. The Dulce Interview Human Origins HARP, Project Bluebeam. Part 1 of 3. Based on interview and research performed by author-researcher, Anthony F. Sanchez, www.ufohighway.com. UFO Highway. UFO Highway is a fresh new look at the military's connection to UFOs. There is no doubt in my mind that the Four Corners area of New Mexico contains some of the most important U.S. government secrets hidden from the public. Noriohiakawa, Rio Rancho, New Mexico. Truth is empowerment. Acknowledgements. Special thanks to my beautiful Nicole, who was so patient with my late nights and time away from home during the development of this book. I want to thank her and my 3 children for their faithful support in me all the time I wrote. And thanks to my dog Banjo and to my Volvo for getting me through tough times and tough terrain, respectively. Thanks to Noriohiakawa, Dennis Balthazar, Frank Warren, Cynthia Siegel, Joe Erganu, Jeff Gonzalez, Allison Cruz, Jerry Pippin, Mel Fabregas, Janet Saylor and Scott Ramsey. The book wouldn't be the same without your contributions and efforts. Thanks to all the wonderful people I met in Angel Fire, New Mexico, who gave me good advice, guidance and encouragement: Stanton Friedman, Travis Walton, Janet Saylor, John Green Newell Jr., Dee Gra, Chuck Wade, David Weatherly, Chris O'Brien, Clifford Mahuti, Sandra Marsh, and to all the fine people there. Thanks to all the people who read the online portion of the Dulce interview before it was fully published and who took the time to email in suggestions and questions. Lots of the ideas, including the people who I researched, came from these good folks. Thanks to all the hundreds of people who visited the UFO Highway website to join the book notification list. Your eagerness to read the book was the inspiration giving me the drive to put together my best collection of writings and research. And finally, thanks to the folks at my publishing company for their help in getting this book off the ground. Additional thanks. Noriohiakawa, Rio Rancho, New Mexico. Norios is well known globally for his research efforts on Area 51, Project Bluebeam, HARP, Dulce NM. DUMBS, cattle mutilations, in addition to many other related subjects. His work encompasses research into UFOs over a span of 45 years, recounting evidence of hundreds of detailed sightings through photo analysis, physical visits to purported locations, and the review of official and unofficial documents from both public citizens and government entities. Norio himself has experienced several sightings of which he cannot explain. He has interviewed hundreds of witnesses to sightings in addition to those who have claimed abduction. His efforts have taken him across the United States and as far away as Japan. In the media, Norio has appeared on UFO Hunters on the History Channel, Coast to Coast AM with George Noory, Somewhere in Time with Art Bell, The Jerry Pippin Show, The Veritas Show with Mel Fabregas, Nippon Network Television, NTV, Japan, The Los Angeles Times. These in addition to the many other media outlets that have called upon him as an expert in UFOs and conspiracy-related subjects matters. I am honored to have had the input, guidance and wisdom of Noriohiakawa throughout this entire endeavor over researching both the Dulce interview and the HARP, Project Bluebeam conspiracy. Having Norio personally take me to each infamous place or enigmatic spot across the New Mexico plateau was a dream come true for any UFO researcher familiar with his work. Thank you, Norio. Anthony F. Sanchez. Website: http://noriohiakawa2012.blogspot.com. Dennis Balthazar, Roswell, New Mexico. Dennis G. Balthazar, UFO investigator, researcher and lecturer, retired from the Texas Department of Transportation in 1996, after 33 years in civil engineering work. Prior to that, he was in the United States Army in an engineering battalion. He moved to Roswell, NM in 1996, to pursue his 25-year interest in ufology and particularly the Roswell incident, underground bases and Area 51. From 1996 to 1998 he was affiliated with the UFO Museum in Roswell, on the board of directors, operations manager and the museum UFO investigator. Today he is an independent researcher, investigator and lecturer and is a member of MUFON and a QFOS associate. I would like to thank Dennis for his guidance and wealth of knowledge that he shared with me leading up to the latter parts of this book's development. Researching his underground base's lecture materials, I was able to examine the technical area facilities in details as described in the Dulce Interview. From his work, I could better examine the construction and technology required to assess the potential that these facilities are in fact real, and do house graves. I cannot thank him enough. Anthony F. Sanchez. Website, http://www.truthseekerattraswell.com. Adad Morales, Sacramento, California. Adad is an expert in 3D and visual effects development. He quickly has mastered the tools used in both major motion pictures and the video game industries. An experienced designer, modeler and animator in both 3ds Max and Autodesk Maya CG, Adad has worked on small modification teams for video games and has also started working on the development of iPhone and iPad games. For UFO Highway, Adad has worked with author, researcher Anthony F. Sanchez to help recreate the Dulce Underground Complex Technical Area D1 facility, the hangar, a corridor, a security access panel, including a gray weapon, all of these using numerous recapture details to give the reader the most accurate reconstruction of the elements as described in the Dulce Interview. There could have been no better choice other than Adad, who I was fortunate enough to have found among hundreds of candidates who applied to me directly, to assist on UFO Highway, from all over the globe, including San Francisco, Los Angeles, Tokyo and London. I found that among the most seasoned and veteran 3D artists, Adad's work stood out among them. Anthony F. Sanchez. Website, http://adadmorales.freehostia.com. Forward. Once in a while there comes a book that changes our preconceived notions of a particular subject matter. The book UFO Highway by Anthony Sanchez could just be such a book. Anthony Sanchez has spent over 20 years accumulating a wealth of pertinent information on the subject of the rumors behind UFOs in conjunction with some of the most significant military installations in the U.S., especially in the American Southwest. His new book is a fresh new look at the military's connection to the rumors about UFOs. This is not a book about whether UFOs exist or not. It is neither a book about reptiles eating humans in a secret underground facility, nor is it about the claims made by the supposed Thomas Costello who may not even have existed at all. It simply surpasses those unsubstantiated claims. This book is filled with information previously not published in any other books of this nature. His fascinating, recent interview with a retired USAF colonel is probably one of the highlights of this book. This interesting interview took place January 6, 2010, just months before the completion of this book. Just like the author Anthony Sanchez, I myself also have done an extensive research on similar topics for over 20 years, spending many years investigating locations such as Area 51 in Nevada and its connections with other important sites such as Southern California's Edwards AFB and remote aerospace facilities in the Antelope Valley, most of which had the outward facade of radar cross-section testing sites. I visited the surroundings near China Lake Naval Weapons Testing Center in the California desert. And yes, there is no doubt in my mind, just as Anthony Sanchez suggests, that there are connections among these facilities, including the Dugway Proving Grounds in Utah. Also, I developed a tremendous interest in Colorado's Cheyenne Mountain and its NRED underground complex. Not only because my wife had a unique opportunity to go through a special, military-guided tour inside the complex in late 1978 through her brother's military connections, but interestingly because just a year later is when some strange things started happening in neighboring northern New Mexico. I had taken a special interest in New Mexico's White Sands missile testing ranges where today, the leading-edge directed energy weapons systems are being tested, as well as Los Alamos National Laboratories, site of the world's foremost human genome research, and both Sandia Laboratories and Phillips Laboratories, of which both are located inside Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque, NM. This is also, within the base, where the Manzano Underground Nuclear Storage Complex is also located. Just as Anthony Sanchez seems to suggest in his book, there is no doubt in my mind that the regions especially east of the Four Corners area of New Mexico contain some of the most important U.S. government secrets, hidden from the public. And yes, above all, my greatest curiosity has been the long persisting rumors about the alleged Dulce underground base in New Mexico. I am convinced that although we have not come up yet with any solid, physical, tangible, irrefutable evidence that there is such a facility in Dulce, there are plenty of circumstantial evidences that point to the possibility that there is something there. I have a trusted friend who was a former proprietor of one of the largest ranches in Dulce who declared to me this year that indeed there is a facility there. Beyond that, he could not make a comment. At the present time he has a sensitive position as the department head of the Department of Agriculture in a well-known state university in New Mexico. After retirement from his present position, he, too, will soon come out and will help us expose the truth about Dulce. As for Area 51 in Nevada, sure, it is public knowledge now that Area 51 is a vibrant military research, development and testing complex conducted by many defense contractors who provide a variety of highly compartmentalized projects. But there is no proof that there could not be something more, besides all the superficial facade of the complex. And yes, practically the whole world has already heard of the claims of Bob Lazar concerning Area 51. For now, there seems to be nothing that can back up his claims. However, at the same time, there is no way to disprove his claims either. Anthony Sanchez's new book derives its title from the actual Highway 375 in Nevada, which was officially declared by the state of Nevada as the extraterrestrial highway in the late 1990s because of its proximity to Area 51. However, Anthony's book goes beyond that. All these significant military bases are interconnected through a symbolic highway. And there is plenty of commonality among these interesting facilities. In addition, they all relate to the rumors concerning UFOs and how beliefs play a major role in the military's maintenance of secrecy. Yes, we all know that there doesn't seem to be any hard, solid, tangible, physical evidence to say that there are more than just the superficial structures behind all these facilities. Yet there are circumstantial evidences that seem to point out that there is something under the physical facade of the facilities. Anthony Sanchez's UFO Highway may be a very important book that could make us think again and take a fresh new look at things behind the facade of these fascinating locations. The timing of this book couldn't be better, as there is talk among a segment of the population concerning the upcoming December 21, 2012 scenario and its possible UFO connections. However, it's highly probable that nothing catastrophic will take place on that date. Rather, in my opinion, December 21, 2012 could simply be a beginning of a gradual shift in human consciousness, a beginning of a gradual personal transformation in each of us, a beginning of a new understanding of the relationship of this earth and its inhabitants to other realities that affect us. It will be up to you, the reader, to decide what personal transformation will occur in your life. Norio Hikawa. Table of Contents. Section Page. The Dulce Interview 11. Post-interview, Analysis and Research 134. What about reptilians? 134. Gray Areas. 135. Timeline, Progenitors, Greys, Humans 136. Maglev Technology? 141. Was he a colonel, and was he at Dulce? 144. DD 214 145. the U.S. government and alien agenda, beginning with cattle mutilations 146. Dissension amid control over underground complexes 148. The COM-12, Wackenhut connection 149. The Wackenhut, Dulce NM connection, and S4 location identified via government informant 150. Coming full circle 152. Transformation hypothesis, human origin 154. Who are we? 155. DNA, forced to rethink our lineal origin 156. Genetic engineering, glowing for science 158. Ancient historical records 163. Cradle of civilization 164. The connection 165. Connecting the Bible to Sumer, examining the existence of Anunnaki 167. Our strongest lineal traditional connection 171. The Dogon and the Sirius star system 172. The Anunnaki, Igigi and Nephilim 174. Genetic engineering and hybridization 179. Sins of all others 180. Further proof, age imposition 184. The Harpend Project Bluebeam connection 186. Transient digital audio phenomena, DAP, 190. The Clovis, California and Murraysville Part Triangle UFO connection 198. Norio Hikawa, UFO Investigator 213. UFOs, Shadow Governments, and Extraterrestrial Life, Notable Quotes 217. Dulce Interview. Background information. This interview was held at a private residence in Placer County, California, on January 6, 2010, conducted by researcher Anthony F. Sanchez, with a retired USAF colonel to recall the events surrounding a classified 1979 incident which took place at Dulce, NM. This includes details involving Colonel X, who was assigned to Dulce as part of a special medical detachment where he learned the history and circumstances surrounding the 1940 Dulce Discovery Event, a harrowing event, as claimed by the colonel, filled with many intriguing details, which have never been revealed to the public before. Message from Anthony F. Sanchez. Because of the enigmatic nature surrounding the UFO phenomenon and how it typically negatively affects those who come forth with disclosure, my source, Colonel X, has requested anonymity. Therefore, I have obtained the information from Colonel X, with assurance that his name would not be divulged under any set of circumstances, or until such time that I am given permission to do so. His military record, academic credentials and current work as a professor in Northern California have been vetted and deemed completely legitimate. On January 8, 2010, Colonel X submitted 2 tests by a certified forensic polygraph examiner. I specifically chose an examiner who knew nothing of the case as to prevent him from later remembering or identifying my source, who requests total anonymity. I personally architected all the questions, outside the innocuous, ensuring that we conceal the secretive nature of the story away from the polygraph examiner. Also, the name of the subject was never given to the examiner, nor was his name asked during the exam. Again, this allowed us to retain anonymity of Colonel X. But all questions were accordant to the colonel's understanding in that they reflected his direct involvement at Dulce. He passed 2 independent examinations. The forensic polygraph examiner can possibly reveal the identity of Colonel X. As such, he was never made aware of the significance of Dulce or the reason for the exam. His selection, the examiner, was made after meeting specific criteria, ensuring prevention of leaks from discovery of the story's premise. Therefore, I will not divulge the name of the examiner used, except for revealing that he is a retired law enforcement officer and now a private investigator, also from Northern California. All the accounts mentioned in this interview are real. There are no fictional characters, and each of these events happened exactly as I have written them based on the personal testimony provided by Colonel X, the only known speaking first-hand witness to events at Dulce. As a devoted UFO researcher and investigator, I regard the obligation to protect the name of my source as sacred as is my obligation to tell the truth. And more than anyone else, I am still surprised as I am grateful for this interview held with the Colonel. I firmly believe that his testimony will be the catalyst to the exposure of what really is happening beneath the mesa at Dulce NM, and how it affects all of us. Disclaimer: the opinions expressed in this interview are the interviewee's own personal views and do not reflect those of the author or publisher in any way whatsoever. Questions from Anthony F. Sanchez are bolded. The Colonel's responses are unbolded. January 6, 2010, 9 a.m. PST. Colonel's private residence, Sierra Nevada region, Placer County, California. Interview. Colonel, what are you doing today? Are you still involved with the military? No, after leaving the Air Force I went back to school and earned 2 postgraduate degrees in psychology. Today I teach graduate students at a college right here in Northern California. I'm still happily married and have 3 children. All 3 are grown now and doing quite well on their own, and I am very thankful they live close by. So you live a pretty normal life. Was it always this way? No, it wasn't, and I guess that's why we are here to talk. During the latter half of my military career while I was still a major with the U.S. Air Force, I can remember how arduously hard I worked towards a promotion to lieutenant colonel. That's all I wanted. Anyhow, at about that time everything about my career was quite normal, proceeding quite well. I was stationed out of 1. McClellan Air Force Base near Sacramento, California. Assigned to a medical detachment specializing in an area of psychiatric and behavioral studies for both the USAF, and occasionally the 2. Central Intelligence Agency. Typically my work involved trips to locations on Joint Air Force-CIA special projects. I know that might sound surprising, but it's accurate. However, any normalcy in my life ended at about that time. Everything I knew would change for many years to come. It began after I received orders to report to Edwards AFB. From there I would fly on a special assignment to conduct interviews at a secret installation in 3. Dulce, NM. That was all I knew about the assignment. I remember thinking to myself, where in the world was Dulce? For one, I had never heard of the place. Secondly, and to the best of my knowledge, I was certain that none of the people I had served with knew of Dulce, either. It had never been mentioned before and was never on any list of installations that I had reported to. The orders informed me that I was to adhere to strict protocol under our classified guidelines, as this was a top-secret assignment. This was nothing new for me. My specialty detachment typically operated at various levels of classification, so our regular operating protocol was to always treat each new job with a standard compartmentalized approach. I had been assigned on many top-secret projects before, and in fact, the year before the Dulce assignment I had been on one particular job having to do with a recovery mission from a crash site located near 4. Fort Irwin down south. A USAF C-130E Hercules with 6 men aboard have nearly collided several times with an object of unknown origin traveling at a super high rate of speed estimated at 1,500 to 2,000 miles per hour. The survivors said the unidentified object appeared to be tracking them, almost playing with them, coming closer with each pass. One man reported that a deafening high-pitched sound penetrated the plane's walls, drowning out the aircraft's own engine noise, causing them painful headaches. By the final pass from the object, the C-130E immediately began to stall, ultimately crashing. 2 men died. This is what I did, what my detachment was for. Our team reported to these types of incidents, and they happened more often than you would think. My role was to assist with physical and psychiatric evaluations of any surviving personnel. Mainly what we would do was conduct an initial, That's medical lingo for a first interview with the patient, and then we'd investigate and document the investigation, all aspects. In some cases we'd facilitate triage if necessary and then conduct exit interviews before submitting our final report. In any event, we never were sure as to what the entire nature of the Irwin incident was. However, one man we evaluated had been subjected to something so severe during the incident that eventually he had to be discharged, medically for mental instability. And whatever it was they saw out there was definitely traumatic enough to make them succumb to an arbitrary psychological condition causing both paranoia and terror. It was pretty severe. I know you want to talk about Dulce, but it's important that I mention this event, in addition to other areas of my work, because it's what prepared me for Dulce, and with a great level of relevance. You can be certain of it. 1. McClellan AFB, Type, Air Force Base, North Highlands, California, built, 1935 to 1938, in use, open 1938, closed 13 July 2001, controlled by, United States Air Force, Garrison, Air Force Materiel Command. 2. The Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, is a civilian intelligence agency of the United States government responsible for providing national security intelligence to senior United States policymakers. It is the successor of the Office of Strategic Services, OSS, formed during World War II to coordinate espionage activities behind enemy lines for the branches of the United States military. The CIA was established under the National Security Act of 1947. 3. Dulce, Rio Arriba County, New Mexico, United States. It is the largest community and tribal headquarters of the Jicarilla Apache Reservation. 4. Fort Irwin, National Training Center, San Bernardino County, California, Type, Training Center, built, 1940, in use, 1940 present, current owner, United States Army, controlled by, U.S. Army Training and Doctrine Command. Do you mean, relevant to your work? Exactly, this assignment was something that caught me completely off guard. Something I don't think I was prepared for even if the Air Force felt that I was. I don't know who recommended me, but I noticed that the two most qualified people in my area of expertise were pooled together for this assignment, me being one of them. Usually when on assignment we operated in a team of 4 to 6 people per detachment, but this time it was to be just 3 of us. Later a 4th would be added, but not in our field of expertise. What I immediately can recall was that upon first reaching the entrance to the Dulce installation was that it appeared to be eerily similar in design to that of Cheyenne Mountain Air Force Station, 4, NORAD, where I had been stationed twice before, except the entrance was half the size. If you were flying above this place at any distance greater than a few hundred feet, you would never know it was there. Only by landing directly near the front gate on an obscure landing pad could you see the entrance. It was very clever how they used the desert land cover to conceal the entrance. Only by coordinates could you find it. 4. North American Aerospace Defense Command, west of Colorado Springs, CO, Type, Aerospace Warning and Aerospace Control, coordinates, 38.744331. -104.84668, built, 1961, in use, 1958, present, current owner, Canada, United States, controlled by, Joint Operations of Canadian Forces Air Command and United States Air Force and co-location with US Northcom, Garrison, Headquarters, Peterson Air Force Base, Directorate, Cheyenne Mountain Air Force Station. Colonel, I hate to do this. But before going into detail about Dulce, can you briefly describe your work at Cheyenne Mountain? Well, before joining and starting 5 OTS at 6 Lackland, I had already earned my Bachelor of Science in Psychology. Back then I had often pondered about one day earning an MD in psychiatry, but once I was fully entrenched, I was too busy, and the travel involved quelled any ideas for additional higher education. Plus, basic officer training had been tough enough. So, at that time an MD was simply out of the question until after my military career was over, possibly. But wouldn't you know it, I chose to forego an MD in psychiatry and decided that teaching psychology would be a much more relaxing and rewarding career path for me after the military. And it is. Anyhow, during my time with the Air Force I was selected for assignment with a classified medical detachment, as you know already. How we operated was simple. We specialized in performing a battery of psychological and behavioral evaluations of military personnel, from any branch, in two manners of protocol. One scenario would be to conduct psychological assessments of personnel after Type X events, and in the other scenario, we would be called to evaluate potential candidates prior to consideration for any special assignment that involved a unique set of circumstances, through both psychological and behavioral assessment. A Type X event or incident involves a death or accident caused by unknown phenomena. These events are classified, usually falling under some umbrella of secrecy, the very reason why my unit was created. 5. Officer Training School, OTS, is a United States Air Force commissioning program. 6. Lackland Air Force Base is a base of the United States Air Force operated by the Air Education and Training Command, ETC. It is located on the west side of San Antonio, Texas, USA. It was named after Brigadier General Frank Lackland. Lackland is part of Joint Base San Antonio and is operated by the 502d Air Base Wing. Was it normal for your detachment to work at places like Cheyenne? Oh yes. At Cheyenne there was regular evaluation required for any potential long-term personnel slated for work at the installation. This was to help identify and combat the effects of working in various levels of prolonged confinement, especially within a deeply embedded or subterranean environment. As you probably know, central operations at Cheyenne are housed at approximately 600 meters within the mountain, and there are various levels of ranging depths to other key operating areas below the mountain's base. It was quite common to encounter new people who had reservations over working these assignments, but to the military. If these people were selected at the top of their grade and qualified with a specific specialization meeting certain requirements, well then, they had to be evaluated, and in rare cases, convinced, to perform their job. This could be done either through psychiatric sessions, or by medicating, or both. Very interesting. Are you saying that many people at NRED are medicated? Oh no. Not at all. With about 1,500 personnel operating the base at any one time, you maybe had 3-5 people with simple diagnoses such as low-level claustrophobic anxiety, the most common in these environments. But if we ever suspected that someone possessed a high-level or an acute claustrophobic or aphairphobic anxiety, there was no way in hell they would be permitted to operate the aphairphobic. Aphairphobic is the fear of being buried alive. Anyhow, these situations would require too much physician interaction and the potential for bad effects from medicating, which would not be conducive to facilitating a successful work environment, for anyone. No, anyone found to be suffering from any acute psychological condition as a result of the environment, was simply reassigned. The work was the same everywhere I went on these assignments, except for at the Dulce installation. How was Dulce different? At first it was because of circumstance. My assignment was always the same: you conduct an investigation, perform psychological analyses of all the personnel involved, and then submit a final report to the commanding officer, but I had never been asked to conduct a full investigation, in charge. Such an important task was usually reserved for assignment to a lieutenant colonel, someone generally at a director of operations level. At the time I was just a major. Aside from the one incident I mentioned before, near Fort Irwin, I had never had the chance to lead a medical detachment, but that event was by chance because our commanding officer was sick. Incidentally, I should note that after submitting my final report for the Dulce incident to my commanding officer, I was promoted to the rank of lieutenant colonel. Being an O5 meant a higher pay grade and a path to one day possibly being a general, but I later learned that my path to happiness would be outside the Air Force, teaching. It would have been a good decision either way. But Dulce was different than anything I had ever been exposed to. I simply cannot sum it up in one sentence. Can you tell me about the assignment and when it arrived on your lap, so to speak? Yes. It was late November of 1979 when they came in. I was at McClellan awaiting my next set of orders. You see, with over 100 bases in the U.S. and Guam, including the Academy in Colorado, there was never a shortage of work for my detachment. There was always something coming in. Colonel, are the 100 bases you are referring to USAF bases? Yes, but I should also note that because of my unit's joint operations with the Central Intelligence Agency, detachments would also responded to incidents for other branches of the military as well. Initially, when our unit was created, our mandate was to work with the 7 FBI office out of Sacramento, but for reasons of which I was not privy to, the CIA would eventually become the only organization that we jointly investigated Type X events with. Anyhow, when these particular orders came in, they arrived in the same usual manner. However, these documents were marked with an official stamp for top secret, SCI, USAF, DO restricted content. There was also an embossed DO insignia, a first time for me, as I had never been involved with any operation outside the joint USAF-CIA periphery for Type X incidents. This was my first assignment involving something that came in from the Department of Energy, and I wasn't sure why. Their 8 DO, Department of Energy, was a cabinet-level department just formed a couple of years before in 1977. Back then, I wasn't sure as to why the DO was even created. This is because their 9ec, Atomic Energy Commission, had been replaced by their 10 NRC, Nuclear Regulatory Commission, so I figured they managed everything nuclear. But much later I would learn the necessity for each group and how they were indeed very different from one another. The NRC oversaw the regulation of the nuclear power industry, and the DO managed nuclear weapons, naval reactors, and nuclear energy development programs. It made sense to separate those areas. Anyhow, back to the report. The report contained sensitive compartmented information. I remember thinking how I had never received this particular type of write-up on any of the orders I'd ever received. Everything about this packet was way more official than usual, and I just felt that something was going to be quite different about it. I was told to report immediately to 11 Edwards AFB and to meet with another officer who was also a part of this new formed detachment. As I was reading the orders, a phone call came in from Material Command saying that an HC-130 Hercules aircraft was ready for departure as soon as I gave the word. Someone, it seems, was making things happen, and ensuring no obstacles were in place. So I grabbed the orders, my gear, and proceeded to the tarmac. It took less than an hour of flying to reach Edwards. When we arrived, I saw several of my usual colleagues, but just one of them had received the same orders as me. I was already somewhat familiar with him, and like me he was also a major, in the same unit. We had been on a couple Type X detachments before, but we never really met outside the field. Upon confirming our orders and exchanging a handshake, we did not discuss anything, as instructed in the packet, and we waited for our first briefing with a brigadier general identified in the report. He would be assigned as our direct supervisory commander. Strange, as we usually had a lieutenant colonel heading up our forays. At first, it would just be the three of us. Later, once at the facility, a Navy lieutenant commander would also join us. But for now it was the brigadier general who we were curious about. Neither I nor the other major had ever met the brigadier general before, but we suspected he was from right there at Edwards. In any event, it was not our job to ask. Incidentally, after this assignment I never saw either of them again, including the Navy lieutenant commander. 7. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, is an agency of the United States Department of Justice that serves as both a federal criminal investigative body and an internal intelligence agency. The FBI has investigative jurisdiction over violations of more than 200 categories of federal crime. 8. The United States Department of Energy, DOE, is a cabinet-level department of the United States government concerned with the United States policies regarding energy and safety in handling nuclear material. 9. The United States Atomic Energy Commission, EC, was an agency of the United States government established after World War II by Congress to foster and control the peacetime development of atomic science and technology. 10. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission, or NRC, is a United States government agency that was established by the Energy Reorganization Act in 1974 from the Atomic Energy Commission, and was first opened January 19, 1975. 11. Edwards Air Force Base, part of Air Force Materiel Command, AFMC, type, military, Air Force Base, operator, United States Air Force, location, Edwards, California, built, 1933, in use, 1948, present, as AFB, occupants, Air Force Flight Test Center. Can you say who your colleagues were? No. I simply cannot. The sensitivity of this information can potentially cause harm to those who were involved. And I would hate to re-involve those men or put their families in harm's way. But what I can tell you are ranks, dates, locations, etc. and I can give you great detail about everything you need to know, but I will not say anything that would directly identify specific individuals. As it is, I am concerned over sharing this information with you today. But I feel that the information must be told to someone, else it will never make it out publicly, not ever. I know that now. Interesting. Colonel, if I may ask, without naming anyone, are they still alive? Yes. I'm sad to say that the Brigadier General has already passed on, and the Major is now in a home. The Navy Lieutenant Commander is doing fine in retirement in Boca Raton, Florida. So as you can see, there is nothing preventing me from talking with you here today, and there is safety through anonymity. So long as I remain anonymous, I feel okay with this. Incidentally, my role in the military after the Dulce event took on a much more interesting path than any of theirs. Paths that can afford me both the protection and solitude I need to do what I am doing with you right now. Got it, please continue. Something had happened at this Dulce installation. And I say it in that manner because I had never heard of Dulce before. I knew of 12, Kirtland AFB by Albuquerque and 13, Holloman near Alamogordo, but I had never of, and I repeat, never had heard of the Dulce, New Mexico installation. I'd been to the desert high terrain of northern New Mexico many times before with family, but never on business. This was going to be a first. When I received the orders, I assumed it was a base, an airfield or some common type of military installation, but that particular bit of info was never indicated. During our briefing with the Brigadier General at Edwards, we were told of a secret two-part installation which existed near the town of Dulce NM. It said we were reporting to a subterranean facility similar to Cheyenne but with a completely different dynamic in its architectural design by incorporating natural elements of the surrounding environment. We were also told that the military command structure located at the installation was somewhat unorthodox, however highly functional. Later, what I found most surprising was that this place was devoted to both pure scientific and engineering R&D, research and development. I'll never forget when I first viewed the sign which read, "Welcome to the 14, Rio Arriba Scientific and Technological Underground Auxiliary." 12, Kirtland Air Force Base, part of Air Force Materiel Command, AFMC, location, Bernalillo County, near Albuquerque, New Mexico, type, military/public, operator, United States Air Force, associate units, Sandia National Laboratories, Phillips Laboratory, 1997 merged with AFRL, Kirtland is the home of the Air Force Materiel Command's Nuclear Weapons Center, NWC. On the 1st of July 1971, Kirtland merged with Manzano Base and Sandia Base, its neighbors to the east. In 1992, the Kirtland Underground Munitions Storage Complex, KUMSC, was activated at Kirtland AFB. 13. Holloman Air Force Base, part of Air Combat Command, location, Otero County, near Alamogordo, New Mexico, type, Military Air Force Base, owner, U.S. Air Force, built, 1942. Holloman Air Force Base was established in 1942 as Alamogordo Air Field 6 miles west of Alamogordo, New Mexico. It was renamed in 1948. 14. Rio Arriba Scientific and Technological Underground Auxiliary, alleged name of deep underground complex located beneath the Archuleta Mesa in Dulce, NM. Purported to be Los Alamos National Laboratory, LANL, Associated Scientific Auxiliary Facility, LANL designation, TAR D1, other designations, Rio O, Rio Arribaco, DST3, Dulce Facility. Really, is that the official name of Dulce? That's right. The public does not know this, but the Dulce Facility's official U.S. government designation is Rio Arriba Scientific and Technological Underground Auxiliary. I do not think it has ever been made public before now. In fact, I've never seen it on the internet, ever. But that is the official government designation. However, more often than not, those who work there simply call the facility either Rio Arriba or Dulce Facility. Here is another thing as well, there are places where the designation can be found by anyone. If you perform a search of official military documentation, the location will from time to time appear as Rio Arribaco or Rio O. Another unknown fact is that initially Dulce was made up of 2 facilities. A third facility came about much later. But let me tell you about the first 2. D1 is the largest and main facility situated directly beneath the Archuleta Mesa. 15. D2 is a smaller 2-level underground facility situated off the Archuleta Plateau, located several miles eastward. D2 is a security auxiliary. D1 is the main R&D facility where all the civilian employees, scientists and engineers report to work. At D2 it's much quieter, and there are helicopter pads located above ground, obscured but sometimes visible near the entrance of that particular location. These helicopter landing pads are mechanical hydraulic lift systems which can quickly drop down to level 1. And beneath the landing pads, on level 1, there is a small hangar used for the Dulce Facility's helicopters. And from time to time, when necessary, they can also park high-mobility multi-purpose wheeled vehicles, HMMWV, Humvees. 15. D2 or TAR D2, alleged 2-level underground security auxiliary located between the eastern slope of Archuleta Mesa and CO Road 357 near southern Colorado border. Colonel, I'm sorry, but how does a Humvee get around up there? Wouldn't the terrain prevent it from getting around? First of all, it doesn't. The Humvees used by the facility's personnel occurs beneath the surface, underground on a platform which adjoins their 16 Maglev shuttle tracks from D1 to D2. The terrain above D2 is not for vehicles. The Humvees could manage, but they don't venture up above. These are only for operation within the facilities. What I saw on multiple occasions was delivery of supplies and equipment by helicopter to D2. On an adjoining pad, a Humvee would be waiting for these items. The Humvee would then be lowered down to level 1 where they would travel to D1 for delivery of said items. This is one of the more common delivery methods I personally witnessed. But lots of inbound items arrived via shuttle to D1 from Los Alamos and other connectors as well. I was in 1982 there when they swapped out 2 older RM998 cargo troop carriers for new models, and those did arrive from Lumberton up County Road 357, towards the Colorado border, where they were then driven to the D2 auxiliary. Once they arrived, they were then lowered down to level 1. But that's about all those vehicles will ever see of the surface unless in extreme cases of emergency. You have to understand that the Maglev shuttle between D1 and D2 also includes an extended flatbed carrier in addition to its 2 passenger cars. If the platform is ever obstructed, the Humvees can ride the flatbed over to D1. D1 on the other hand can heavy see inbound and outbound traffic from its entrance from ground vehicles if it were required. But that rarely, if ever, occurs. Most all inbound visitation comes from the shuttles. 16. Maglev, or magnetic levitation, is a system of transportation that suspends, guides and propels vehicles, predominantly trains, using magnetic levitation from a very large number of magnets for lift and propulsion. This method has the potential to be faster, quieter and smoother than wheeled mass transit systems. The power needed for levitation is usually not a particularly large percentage of the overall consumption. Most of the power used is needed to overcome air drag, as with any other high-speed train. Colonel, you've been dropping hints to me that you were there at Dulce for some time, am I accurate? Yes. We'll get into that. Also, I hate to sound skeptical about this, but how are these hidden helicopter pads able to remain unseen, because my suspicion is that this would be extremely difficult to pull off. Have you been to the area off the eastern slope of the mesa? There really isn't much going on between the slope and County Road 357. All that you are going to find out there are very few scattered cabins and remote homes, some of which are not even inhabited year-round. So yes, the landing pad area remains relatively unvisited due to its remoteness. And you have to remember that they are expertly disguised by large industrial canvas pull-away ups that cleverly mimic the area's ground cover when fully stretched. Not a scientific approach, but very successful at concealing the pads. Despite the being a massive warehouse, hangar facility situated within D1, mostly what goes on at D2 is housing for the helicopters. The D2 Security Auxiliary represents a better access point, and it's where the physical maintenance happens, so it makes perfect logistical sense. Another important reason for this is because from time to time there are 2 very large special craft, discs, housed at the D1 hangar bays which are not towers. Discs? Yes, and not towers. Technically. But I'll elaborate more on the craft later. Besides, I think you'll find this next bit of information just as interesting. Which is what? That despite the remoteness and hidden nature of D2, finding the D2 facility entrance occurs quite often by regular people. There is a visible unimproved dirt road, well, it's more of a trail and it is very bumpy, leading up to the spot. This location is found more often than not by regular people who visit the area. Many Jicarilla people have found it, and know damn well what it's there for. But through mutual understanding with 17 DST3, they never talk about it openly. To keep people from guessing about what it is exactly, there is a small above-ground shack, operational with numerous types of ground sensors, cameras and sometimes 1 or 2 soldiers in plain clothes. The shack bears hardly any signage to avoid indicating ownership or purpose, etc. It is a very quiet place, and is almost always locked up. It is just boring enough in appearance to keep people unaware to what it really is, and more importantly, it's to keep people away from it. So when you hear people telling stories of finding the entrance to Dulce, this is usually what they are referring to. And they are correct, it is one of the entrances to Dulce. Alternatively, finding D1 is not easy. The D1 main entrance is up against a wall or slope of columnar basalt. It is a sophisticated entrance similar to Cheyenne in appearance, but it is behind 2 very large pull-away doors covered with a realistic and undetectable rock face facade to conceal its location. This is where I was taken, and I'll tell you right now that if you were not aware of these doors' existence, you would never find them. There is an obscured unimproved dirt road which hugs a hidden path that leads to the entrance. People hike and even drive past on regular occasion. This is what was built in 1947-49 when road construction had begun to facilitate traffic for a lumber company. This would be by creating a road that would facilitate transport of lumber away from the area. This is all public record, However, not one tree was ever cut down or taken from the area. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers from Muroc used the roads to foster the construction of the facility. And when they completed the job, the roads were destroyed. Now only one unimproved road to the entrance exists, and it too is cleverly hidden if not impassable. Another thing is this. The Dulce facilities all operate within the periphery of 18. LAN 17. DSD3, Dulce Security Division 3. The Rio Arriba Scientific and Technical Underground Auxiliary Intelligence and Security Force, works in tandem with Installation Command, holds complete autonomy on all security matters related to Dulce Facility, operates at all 3 Dulce technical areas. 18. Los Alamos National Laboratory, or LAN, is a United States Department of Energy, DOE, national laboratory, managed and operated by Los Alamos National Security, LANS, located in Los Alamos, New Mexico. LAN? Los Alamos National Laboratories. There are direct routes to technical areas throughout Los Alamos from the Dulce facilities. In fact, the official designation for D1 is TAR D1, and the same goes for D2 and 19, D3. Insiders just shorten it, dropping the TAR, for whatever reason. The one thing I want to share with you that is critical for you to understand is that 20, LAN is involved with everything. There are high-level individuals who have direct access to DSD3 and 21, Installation Command at the executive level. These people work with DSD3 to determine who gets chosen to work at the main Dulce facility, and at D3, 19, D3 or TAR D3, Underground Security Auxiliary located southwest of Dulce in Leandro Canyon directly beneath Project Gas Buggy Ground Zero site and Leandro Tank, water abatement, mini reservoir completed in 1980. 20. LAN, acronym for Los Alamos National Laboratories. 21. Installation Command, military administration and proxy organization operating oversight of all scientific and technological research projects, also responsible for black budget oversight and federal contract administration. What about D2? No. There is no one at D2 except for DSD3 pilots and security personnel. Is it possible to drive out to D2? It's possible, but you really wouldn't want to drive because the terrain is nearly impossible to traverse without the right type of vehicle. You can make your way up County Road 357 to the area parallel to D2, but once you leave the road for the shack, it's better to go by foot. Well, that's definitely new information. I've heard the lumber company reference before, but never in that context. And can you provide coordinates to D2? Anthony, technically I could, but I would be risking my life, even under the super level of anonymity which I employ today. You have to understand that revealing as much as I am to you is going to immediately trigger protocols within DSD3 for finding me. But they won't. I'm beyond their reach, I have assured that long ago. Can you go into details about this? No. Just think about how our mutual friend got you and me together. You know his past, which companies he's worked for and what he developed over the last decade. He belongs to the same channel of people that I am a party to. We created our circle and have tightly guarded our secrets to protect us. And let's just say that we have many owed favors and unlimited resources to ensure that they are paid when asked for. Once we part, that's it. You won't see me again. I'll transfer within my employer to another facility elsewhere within the country, and my family has already made plans to follow. And that is all I am going to elaborate on. They'll never find me. Understood. Can you tell me about people finding D2? You were hinting to that earlier. D2, people do find it. Every year people manage to find the spot, you just have to look hard for it. And I'm telling you that it is none of the cabins or homes in the low-lying area off the eastern slope. The D2 shack is a small military-made utility-type structure. That's what you are looking for. And if you are guessing as to why would it even be there, The reason is because it houses a secondary set of operating controls for the landing pad and mechanical hydraulic lift systems, and if for no other reason at all, that is why it is there. I have been inside of it numerous times. Where does the shack or even the D2 facility get its power from? Where you are describing is a remote area, and various internet sources say it's either Navajo Dam or El Vado Dam. Are these correct? No. That's wrong. Anthony, this is what I look for on the internet. I look for the stories created by those who don't know what they are talking about. It's these little details that let me know right off the bat when someone is making claims of certain things, about Dulce, which they obviously don't know at all. Both D1 and D2 facilities use factory-sealed '200 kilowatts miniature nuclear reactors, called microreactors. These are designed and created by Los Alamos National Laboratories. They've been in use for over 30 years now. What's amazing is that this technology is only now making its way to the commercial domain. The Dulce microreactors are only a few meters in diameter, and only require refueling once every 10 years. They are the ideal choice for the creation of deep underground facilities. 22, Pine Gap uses them, so does 23, Northrop Corporation Pico Rivera, as well as 24, Mount Weather, 25, Peri, and quite a number of the areas supporting the land underground technical areas in and around the township. 22, Pine Gap, Joint Defense Space Research Facility, Alice Springs, Australia, satellite tracking station operated by both Australia and the United States. It consists of a large computer complex with 8 radar domes, protecting antennas, and has over 800 employees. It is believed to be one of the largest echelon ground stations and appears to be physically and operationally similar to the American Signals Intelligence facilities at Buckley Air Force Base, Colorado, and Menwith Hill, United Kingdom. United States government personnel at Pine Gap are believed to be mostly from the National Security Agency and subordinate service-associated agencies, as well as the Central Intelligence Agency. 23. Northrop Corporation Pico Rivera, a 157-acre, 0.64 square kilometers, manufacturing facility located at the corner of Rosemead and Washington Boulevards, which was owned and operated by the Ford Motor Company. The plant closed in 1980 and was purchased by Northrop Grumman in 1982 for its Advanced Systems Division. Upon the unveiling of the B-2 Spirit bomber in 1988, it was revealed that much of the development for the former Black project had in fact occurred at the site. In the early 1990s, the division was renamed the B-2 Division to reflect its most famous product. At its peak, the project employed approximately 13,000 workers in Pico Rivera. The site closed and demolished in 2001. 24. The Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center is a civilian command facility in Virginia used as the center of operations for the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. Also known as the High Point Special Facility, HPSF, its preferred designation since 1991 is SF. The facility is a major relocation site for the highest level of civilian and the military officials in case of national disaster, playing a major role in U.S. continuity of government, per the Continuity of Operations Plan. 25. Peri, Pisgah Astronomical Research Institute, pronounced Perry, is an astronomical observatory located in the United States in Balsam Grove, North Carolina. Peri operates multiple radio telescopes and optical telescopes for research and teaching purposes. Peri is located at the site of the former Rosman satellite tracking station founded by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, in 1962. The site was part of the Worldwide Spacecraft Tracking and Data Acquisition Network and an integral communications link for Project Gemini and Project Apollo, the manned space programs. The facility was transferred from NASA to the National Security Agency, NSA, in 1981 and was used as an intelligence gathering facility for the United States. The site was officially closed by the NSA in 1995 and turned over to the United States Forest Service. Colonel, I'm sorry, Pari, Mantweather. What are these? These are other deep underground facilities. Some are scientific, military, and medical, even emergency government auxiliaries. They are everywhere, and not just in the United States. Pine Gap is in Australia, and we've jointly constructed several in Canada. The Russians, including a host of other European countries, have them as well. In Russia there's 25, Yamato Mountain, which is similar to Cheyenne but larger. I'd say by the intelligence I receive that it's very antiquated but filled with dangerous levels of toxic materials and loosely monitored nuclear equipment. That's a place we worry about often. The Chinese too have constructed what is probably the mother of all underground bases in the Chengdu district, which has a rail system that leads all the way to the southern coastal waters off China. And theirs is exactly that. It is a military base. Unlike Dulce, which is scientific, used for research and development, not to mention reverse engineering, their 26 Chengdu underground complex is used for military use only. Our intelligence on Chengdu is very limited. That is another facility and government who we need to pay real attention to. When the shit hits the fan, it will be China and elements of Russia, not the Middle East like you are being led to believe. The Chinese are developing stealth capabilities at a devastatingly fast rate. And if we don't pay attention, they are going to own our military in the same way they already own our economy. They have already shown that their Song-class submarine possesses stealth capabilities further than we had anticipated, and they even surprised our best naval fleet during one of our own military exercises. Later you'll understand why Dulce is so important to our government. And matters like these, as with the Chinese, are prime example as to why we've expanded beyond the Dulce land periphery to newer areas within the country that even I only know very little of. The work at Dulce is important and is in the interest of all of our asses, but some aspects are just wrong. And those I cannot condone any longer.